The spine is the name of the system of bones that protects the spinal cord. There's 5 different regions to the spine, ranging from the cervical spine up here in the neck down to the tip of the coccyx, which is your tailbone. If we look at the cervical spine first in more detail. Now there's 7 cervical vertebrae. A vertebra is a name for one of the individual bones. In the neck, they protect the spinal cord, and you have nerves coming off each side, which are these yellow parts to the system here. So at each spinal level, C1, C2, C3, that's how we name the cervical vertebrae, you have what's called a spinal nerve coming out each side. And they go down to the arms. The ones from the cervical spine spread out to your arms and control your muscles in your arms, but also they detect sensations coming from your fingertips, for example. The next level of the spine is called the thoracic vertebrae. And these are the vertebrae from which the ribs come. So the ribs slot in here and then curve round, if you can imagine, to the chest. Now there's also some thoracic nerve roots here, and these are the yellow bits coming out here. The next section down is the lumbar vertebrae, and these sit right at the back of your abdomen. These are really large weight-bearing vertebrae. If you imagine at the neck, these vertebrae only have to support your skull, but by the time you get here, they have to support the entire weight of your upper body sitting on your pelvis. So these are really large, and you can see that the vertebral bodies, these round parts, get much bigger as you go down. Now the grey parts here are the intervertebral discs, and they're made of cartilage, and they separate each vertebra and cushion it against the others. Now there's different conditions that can affect intervertebral discs, one of which you might have heard of is called a slipped disc. And what happens there is an intervertebral disc is a bit like a donut, where on the outside it's quite hard, but on the inside it's soft. And sometimes when the outer layer cracks, some of the soft inside protrudes out. And if that presses on one of these nerve roots, and you can see that the nerve roots run right alongside these intervertebral discs, you can get a lot of pain because it's pressing on a nerve. And that's what we call a slipped disc. Another thing that can happen is that these discs degenerate in old age, and then the vertebrae can get much closer together, and that can result in a lot of pain and stiffness and stop the patient moving properly. So that's the lumbar spine, and lots of conditions that affect the disc happen in that region. The next part of the spine is called the sacrum, and this sits right down here in the pelvis. So this large sort of chassis here is the pelvis, and here's the sacrum, and these are called the sacral vertebrae. And there's 5 of those. And you can also see that there are sacral nerve roots coming out, and they innervate, which is the word we use to describe what they connect. They innervate all the organs that sit in the pelvis because they're very close to it. Now finally, the last very tip is called the coccyx, and that's a remnant of the tailbone from our evolutionary ancestors who used to have tails. That's right down in the pelvis as well. Now one thing you might not know is if we look at the spine from the side, you can see that different parts of the spine have different curvatures. So up here in the neck, the spine's curving slightly away, then in the thoracic it curves this way, sort of outwards towards your body, before changing back in the lumbar region. Now another series of conditions that people have are abnormalities of spine curvature. So you might have old ladies, for example, with a kyphosis, and that means that they're sort of hunched over like this, so their spine is abnormally curved forwards. Another condition is a lordosis, which is where you're upright and your spine curves inwards this way instead of outwards. A last condition is called scoliosis, and we're looking at the spine from the back here. You can see it's nice and straight, but scoliotic patients it comes out to the side and then curves round. Now all these abnormalities of the spine may happen naturally and might not affect the patient, but sometimes it can affect their range of movement and affect their mobility. Different doctors treat the spine. They might be a spinal surgeon or a neurosurgeon or an orthopedic surgeon. So there's 3 types of surgeons that operate on spinal conditions. Or they might be a rheumatologist who's an expert in diseases of bones and joints.